Join us as we share our experiences, strength, and hope. When the world says, give up, hope whispers, try it one more time.
What's up, Mile High, and welcome back to Sharing Our Stories. My name is Slim. To the left of me, Nani Al-Jalil. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Slim. Thank you.
So good to see you. Over there in the corner, Mile High, that is Tomas Hernandez from Tribe Recovery Homes, who does great work, even though we tend to pick on each other quite a bit. And our guest today...
The funnest thing.
is Kelly Mahana, and this is Sharing Our Stories, and welcome to the program. And if this is your first time here, this program is all about addiction and recovery. We bring in people from around the Mile High and even further to come on in and discuss their struggles with addiction and their pathway to recovery, because we do believe that there are many pathways to recovery. There's not just one way to do it and find that, you know what, you can get sober. There are a lot of them, and we want to share those because I believe, and I think everybody else here does too, that when we share these stories, we give other people some strength and hope that they too can get clean, because that's what it's all about. We want to see some people make their lives better. We want lives to last longer. And that's what this is all about. So Tomas from Tribe Recovery Homes. Tribe Recovery Homes is the sponsor of this program. You can find them at triberecoveryhomes.com. How's it going, man?
Good, man. It's really good to be home. Really good to be home.
Yeah, you travel constantly. All you do now is like fly from place to place, saving lives, doing good things, but you're never actually here.
Yeah, I mean, I got the opportunity. I have I have different positions now. I have a great staff, so it's really, really fun to really spread my wings. I'm really trying to figure out how to diversify and not just help Tribe, like the show here, like the great story we're about to hear is to save lives on a mass scale. You have to lock arms with different organizations and figure out where all the funding's at so we can all have a piece. And that's really the mission where I'm at. And, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, everybody that's listening, that I just got started. I'm learning this new phase of fundraising. I have a few hot projects on the burner right now, but it's all about raising money for not only Tribe, but for many, many organizations in different cities. So it's I'm tired. You know what I mean? I got a very patient wife. I got a very very trustworthy and motivated staff. But one thing I do know is traveling, I figured out I got to give a big, huge shout out to Colorado and the Metro Denver area recovery movement and reentry movement. We are Rome. So know that when you are out there thinking that we don't have anything in Colorado, you really have to reach out and open up your eyes, because I've traveled to a lot of places that don't have anything. Mm-hmm. Or they are saturated with the wrong things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like Las Vegas becoming a second home. It's, I got dual residency there now, and I love the place, and it needs help. Yeah. It needs help, and they just have a different way of doing things, and you got to learn their way. You can't come in with the Colorado way, but there's a lot of different knowledge that I can instill, and the same thing is become a family in the great state of Nevada, just like the great state of Colorado, and then going to California, man, and California is just... That's like Rome 2023, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know what I mean? California is its own animal. It's really, you look at a Metro Denver area, right? And then you look at an LA County area, which is 5 times as much people in that area. And it's really unfortunate that we don't have an exact scope on the people that are doing the great work out there and getting them the funding that they need, which is my new mission. But it's really fortunate that we do have them, if that makes sense. And I really want to go ahead and take media in this show and get out there with a microphone and a camera and really start showcasing these people and the great work that they're doing, just like we're going to do tonight. I mean, I'm really, really honored to have you on this show, man. I mean, just when you hear this story, it's great. It's a guy that just did a tremendous amount of time and took a small business and made it into a business that's profitable, that turned into helping people in the end. And that's really what that mission is, and being on all these flights, really finding stories like this, because it's like, man, if you know Denver and you're from Denver, the story you're about to hear is a kid that lost his way from North Denver. And if you know anything about North Denver, wasn't a lot of opportunity. It still is not a lot of opportunity besides gentrification. You know what I mean? Other than that, you know what I mean? You just kind of just stay in the mix, and you got to figure out where you're at, and you got to, and you got to be, and you're either going to sink or swim. So, I just really, really loving being back home and being on this show, and it's really great to have you as a guest here, and let's rock with it, man. I'm excited to hear this.
So real quick, Kelly, before I turn it over to you, you run a recovery home now, a sober living.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that real fast.
Yeah, so I opened up Authentic Recovery Homes. We have 3 level 2 CAR certified recovery homes. 2 of them are in Capitol Hill in Denver, which is cool because it's right in the mix of everything. And then we have 1 just south of GW, which is still in Denver. It's like on the outskirts of Cherry Creek. And so we really work with individuals from all walks of life, all different struggles, right? Some people struggle with alcohol. Some people struggle with fentanyl. Some people struggle with the criminal justice system and addiction. And we also work with people who have co-occurring disorders too. So they're dealing with substance use disorder and mental health stuff and any array of all of the above.
I just read today that 63% of people incarcerated are dealing with some kind of substance abuse problem.
I think that's a really low number, and I don't know who they pulled. I don't know who they pulled to get that number.
Yeah, and you remember how much we used to lie on our paper?
Man,
yeah. So like, I remember the first time I went in, I said I did everything, and then when I got out on parole, I had like 20 classes exactly, and 10 UAs a week, and everything like that. So when I came back in, man, I was lying. I don't do nothing. I don't do a thing. You know what I mean? And that's crazy how you get those numbers. But, I mean, it's in the ballpark, but I bet you.
I say it's so much higher just from being in there for so long.
Well,
everyone's getting high on something.
I'm going to let you take over here. This is your program from here on out, and share your recovery and your addiction and your recovery. Our guest today, Mahai, is Kelly Mahana from Denver.
I came here when I was young, but I've been here pretty much my whole life.
All right, this home.
Yeah, this is home. Denver's home for sure.
Mahai, welcome, Kelly Mahana.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Tomas.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just tell you guys a little bit about myself. My mom is Mexican. My dad is white. I grew up mostly with my mom's side of the family, and part of our culture was gangs. Like, that was the big thing. Like, my earliest memories are like one of my uncles going to prison, and that wasn't a bad thing. Everyone was like, oh, like, they were just so proud of him, and like, he got so much respect. So that was like, he was my idol. So I was like, oh, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to be. And my mom had her own struggles, so I got bounced around from home to home with her family members, like my aunt, my grandma, my grandpa, or my grandparents. And then my dad ended up getting murdered one of the times he came to pick me up, and it happened right in front of me, like a couple months before I turned 6 years old. And so that kind of really molded me and shaped me in a negative way, because I knew like the boogeyman was real, because I saw my dad get killed in front of me. And then just the instability, the only thing that was constant around me was the gang in my neighborhood. And everyone like respected those dudes. So that's just always what I wanted to be. I just always wanted to be a gangster, you know? And like my mom was like, you're a white boy, you ain't. I'm like, shit, we gonna see, you know? So yeah, that was what it was. When I was 10 years old, I caught my first felony. I got into a fight with this older, I was 10, he was 15, but he had just got out of youth corrections. He was a gang member already, and I was just repping the hood. And he was like, fool, you ain't official. And I was like, it is what it is. We started getting down, and he hit me. I fell down. There was a Snapple bottle right there. So I busted it off I did this. I hit it on the ground, and it didn't break. And I was like, oh, shit. Hit it again, it broke, and I just started stabbing him. But he didn't tell on me because he had his own stuff. But I still got charged for that. So I've been in the system since I was 10 years old. I ended up getting sent to the Colorado Division of Youth Corrections. And yeah, so when I was in there, I was still repping my hood or whatever. When I got out, I got put on when I was 12 years old. I got jumped on. I remember I had my, back then there was like the tall tees. Do you remember that? The white tall tees. So I had an all white tall tee on. And I was chilling at a house party with a bunch of homeboys and whatever. And they're like, hey, come outside real quick. And one of the homegirls was like, don't go outside. Don't go. And I went outside and they put me on. And then like we framed that shirt and everyone signed it. My blood was all on it. It was crazy. But yeah, at that same time when I was 12 years old, that's when I like learned how to start selling crack. And it happened because I was bouncing around from place to place between my homeboys, and one of my older homies used to slang a lot of dope. And I remember one day he gave me a teener. He was like, here, bro, get you some money. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went to another homie and I was like, hey, bro, what could I sell this for? He's like, I'll give you $20. I was like, all right. So I gave him this teener. Then I went back to my homeboy. I was like, yo, bro, I made $20 off that. He's like, are you stupid? He's like, bro, you could have got way more for that. And he's like, here, let me show you. So then he started breaking down like how to slang dope and all that. And so that's that's what I started doing. I just started slanging crack. And that's how my addiction like really came full-fledged. Was there was another homie from my hood. He was my same age, and he was like my best homie. And I would sell crack all day, and I'd sleep on the couch in his aunt's house because he lived with his aunt. And I'm a teenager. I'm young right now. And he ended up becoming a smoker. So he got smoked out, and him and some East Side they jumped me. Him and some East Sider jumped me and robbed me for all my dope. And so I got stabbed in that incident. And I went to my other homeboy's house, and I was like, oh, bro. And he's like, here, hit this. And he put a pipe in front of my face. He's like, it'll make you feel better. And so next thing I knew, it was literally 3 days later. And I was like, I was just extremely high. Like I had smoked weed and drank and all that for years before then, but I never really thought of it as like, at that time, I kind of looked down on like the smokers is what we used to call them, the smokers. Like I would sell crack to people and I'd treat them like dirt. And then, man, I got hooked. And I was like, what is that? And that's when I found out it was meth. So I ended up going to youth corrections, got committed. I got out 3 months before I turned 18. And I didn't care about anything. I was just like, whatever, I'm out here. I didn't have nowhere to go. I didn't have nowhere to parole to. I came up on my MRD for youth corrections, like my commitment was over, because that's what they call when you get adjudicated and committed. And so there's this woman who was like 35. Mind you, I'm a teenager. And she's like, well, you could stay here if you hook up or whatever. So I was like, yeah, I have to. I need a address to parole to. But she didn't let me stay with her. So, but it got me out, which was cool. So I'm like, I'm right out here. I'm like trying to find dope. I'm trying to do whatever. I'm kicking down doors. I'm robbing stuff. I'm just all over the place. And I'm getting high again because I'm all the way strung out by now. I'm shooting up meth. And I was gone. And then I started getting into some crazy stuff because I was on drugs and alcohol and Klonopins and just everything. Anything I could get my hands on, like I would take. But I never thought I was an addict because I was still selling dope. So I was like, well, I'm not you. Like, I'm out here doing my thing. Like, you're a drug addict. I'm not. And then me and my girlfriend at that time and one of my homeboys who ended up passing away when he got out, rest in peace, he overdosed and died. Even though he did tell on me and there's paperwork on it. But anyways, that's a different story. That is a whole different story. But we went out and I basically cuffed my girlfriend at the time, some dope, some clear. She gave it to her friend. It turned into a whole big old deal. I ended up getting a 60-year sentence. I was a teenager, but I was on juvenile parole. And they're like, oh, whoa, boom, gone. So I went to prison when I was a teenager. I went to Lyman, which was which is a level 4 yard here in Colorado. And it used to be notorious. I don't know nowadays, but my first experience walking in to A&O. Well, first I'll tell you, the bus pulls up into reception, and then like you get your bag full of stuff or whatever. Mm-hmm. The CO starts walking us to A&O. And mind you, I'm a teenager. I was scrawny and scared and whatever. And anyone who says they're not scared when they first go to prison, they're full of it.
Right.
I don't believe them at all.
Yeah.
So the CO's like, if you have any issues, say something now because we won't save you. So now I'm really scared because I'm like, my neighborhood is not popular in prison.
Yeah.
So I'm like, dang, man. I'm like nervous, and I'm like, whatever. We'll see what happens. I could hide out because if you don't know me, you just think I'm a white boy. So I could hide out till I see some homies and then go from there. As soon as we walked into A&O, it was 1B back then. It might still be. I don't know. But in Lyman, we walk in, someone from the third tier yells, "Hey, who came?" And this dude just steps back and he goes, "He's a Northsider." And they just pop, a couple Sureños pop their doors, ran down and like jam me up. Boom, boom. I go to the hole. So now I'm in the hole. I get a kite. There's only 4 Northsiders on the whole yard. They're like, "Well, hey, are you coming back out?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm coming back out." They're like, "All right, well then we're going to get you over here." So I went there, but that was my first experience in prison. I was like, I jumped. You know,
right out the gate.
Yeah, and I had at that time I thought I was gonna die in prison.
Yeah.
Then once I hit the unit, it was 3C at that time. It was 3 other Northsiders and then me. I made 4, and yeah, it was just rough and rocky for a lot of years. And I got sent to CSP on 3 different occasions for engaging in the ongoing gang rivalry. But the whole time I was there, it was actually one of those times when I was in CSP, I took this drug and alcohol class. This was before they opened it up and you could come out of your cells. Mm-hmm. And so the only way to get out of your cell was to go to like a drug and alcohol class. Now, I didn't go because I thought I had a problem or anything. I just wanted out of my cell. And mind you, we weren't like free out of that cell. We were handcuffed, shackled, had a belly chain, chain up our butt. And we were padlocked.
So
to the
tell
floor.
them what a social threat group means and explain.
Yeah.
That. So that's basically what we're explaining.
Yeah. So in prison, a STG group just means you're a validated gang member, and CSP is Colorado's maximum security prison. Mm-hmm. So it's the highest you could go, and they've changed a lot now how they run. But the first 2 times I went there, they said it was 23-1, but it was 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Your 1 hour out was another cell with the pull-up bar in it. Mm-hmm. Like you were there by yourself. Like you didn't, you think I'm pale now. You should have seen me after the first 4 years I did in there. Yeah. I was see-through. Like it was crazy. Man, it sucked. And what's even crazier is like I only saw CSP do 2 things to people. It either makes like after 3 years, I don't know why, but 3 years was like the magic number. So after 3 years straight in there, people would go crazy, like loony, like weird, like rubbing poop on themselves and talking to stuff that's not there, or that hate just builds and it gets so much more intense and you don't care about anything because now you know that there's nothing that can be done to you except death. And that's the boat I fell into.
Well, I'm glad you didn't rub poop on you.
Yeah, man, me too. So am I. Nah. So second time I go there, I'm like, let me go to this drug and alcohol. And let me say this, for those of you who aren't aware, that stuff is frowned upon, or it used to be. So like taking mental health meds, like if you're from a gang and you were politicking on those, at least on those level yards, if you were legit like bipolar or whatever, you could not take no mental health meds. Yeah. And the reason behind that was because you need to be ready at all times to go in case anything happens. And so I was like, man, I don't care. I've been in this cell for years. I want to go. I want to get out of this cell. Mm-hmm. So I went to this drug and alcohol class. And then, I left this part out. They have like a hole in the desk. And so not only do you have all that stuff and padlock to the floor, but they run a chain through that hole. And then they handcuff you to that too. Mm-hmm. So you're like
So you're handcuffed to the desk, is what you're saying.
You're handcuffed to the desk and padlocked to the floor, and you got a belly chain and another set of handcuffs, and you got the ones around your ankles, and then you got the lovely chain that goes up your butt.
Yes, even if you work in the kitchen, you get stripped out every time you come in and you come out. So
And you can't.
they come from a different prison, and they have no contact with them, man.
Yeah, and you can't look the COs in the face. Like, you have to turn around. So, like, if you're gonna leave your cell, even for your shower, you have to turn around and face inside your cell. They tell you to back out, and they move with like 3 of them at a time. And like, if you look at them, they'll get crazy on you. I don't know if it's still like that, but that was my experience when I was there. But that's also happens to be where I overdosed. I overdosed in a non-contact facility. Administration was really mad about that because you don't have any contact with anyone except COs. So they were like, "How did you get drugs in here?" And I was like, "I think you guys tried to kill me." That's what I told them. But but yeah, so like that was kind of one of my biggest eye openers was when I overdosed in prison. The guard who kind of like saved my life was a mark. Like, nobody liked him. And he was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Nah." He took me to medical. The nurse, what he said was like, "It's $5 to go to medical." I was like, "I don't want to go to medical. I didn't ask." Well, he took me anyways. I collapsed. Took me to medical. The nurse was like, "He's faking it. Take him back to his cell." This dude got on the phone and called shift commander and was like, "Hey, they're telling me to take him back, but he's not okay." And she was like, "Well, who is it?" And he was like, "Mahana." And she was like, "Nah, call the ambulance. Get him out of here." Well, they called the helicopter, but the ambulance got there first. And then they took me to this hospital in Canyon City, Colorado. And it was horrible because this was before all the Narcan and all the stuff they have now to like prevent that stuff. Mind you, when I go to the hospital, man, I'm handcuffed and chained to the little hospital bed.
And you're in territorial.
No, I was in
you're in the Canyon
St.
City?
Thomas More.
Oh, you're in the
actual hospital.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, but the medical staff, they didn't care about me.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't like, "Oh, we need to save him or help him." They did the bare minimum. They treated me like crap. And like as soon as I was like, okay, in their minds or whatever, they're like, "Don't fall asleep. Get him out of here." They took me back to the facility. I still thought I was gonna die. I was messed up. And the guards on the way, they're doing that little thing where they press the gas and then slam on the brakes, and I'm hitting everything, and like they're laughing, and I'm like,
yeah, and you're in that little cell inside of the bus.
yeah. So I'm just like, man, that was one huge eye opener for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was also around that time that the lady who taught that drug and alcohol class was like, "Why don't you think you're an addict, Mahana?" And I was like, "Well, because I'm not." And she's like, "Well, how much drugs do you do? Didn't you just overdose? Didn't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, but it's not because I'm an addict." And she's like, "Well, you think because you used to sell drugs that you're not a drug addict, but you probably did more drugs than the people you sold to." And that like hit me. And that was like the first time I was like, oh, man, I think I do have a problem.
Yeah.
And then just all of that on top of having to be in a cell by myself and not having no contact, only 2 phone calls a month if you on good standing with like the administration and you get your phone calls. Man, I remember looking in the mirror one day and just like hating myself. And it's not like a mirror. I don't know how to
piece of tin.
Yeah, that you can't even really see yourself. You look like the Beast, from Beauty and the like you're all deformed and stuff. But I just remember looking at whatever was reflecting and just hating myself and being so angry and upset and frustrated. And then I realized in that same moment, like, dang, bro, I got myself here. Like I could have blamed it on everyone around me and my childhood and like all that. But I realized like I was in charge of my life and I got myself to where I was at. And then from there, I just started moving differently. Like when I finally went back to the yard, I would like, They're like, oh, it's mandatory yard. It's mandatory this. I'm like, man, I'm not doing nothing if I don't want to do it. I don't care. Who's it mandatory to? To you? Who are you, bro? You're another dude next to me. And then I went back to lineman. So in 2015, 14, sometime in those years, I went back to lineman. And then in 2017, we were supposed to be like on a treaty or whatever. Didn't work out that way. Got into another incident. Went back to CSP for engaging in an ongoing gang rivalry, but I didn't have a write-up. So I'm in CSP, but I don't have no write-up.
Wow.
So I'm appealing it. I finally won my appeals. So now I'm getting transferred to DRDC to wait to see what level 4 yard I'm going to go to now or back to.
That's worse than probably where you're at. The place is boring as hell.
Yeah, so I go, and I was in Unit 5 upstairs. I'm in my little jumpsuit, sitting in my cell. I see my homeboy Stacks, rest in peace, Gage Rivera. He died of an overdose when he got out. But he was shook, and this is a childhood friend. Not just a gang member friend, but like we went to school together and all that. And I seen him, and he was shook. He was scared. He's like, bro. He opened up his jumpsuit, and he had holes all in his body. He's like, bro, they just tried to kill me. Talking about our gang rivalry. And he's like, you be ready when the doors open. And I was like, ooh, all right, whatever. And so I'm sitting there, laying on my bunk. They come over the thing. They're like, Mahana, go to the office. I go to the office, and it's this lady. She's a psychiatrist for the Department of Corrections. But she had been working there since I started my sentence. And so now she was like up here, and I'm still in the same place I've been. But now I'm in my late 20s, and she's like, how are you doing? And I just started crying. It wasn't I didn't even know she worked there or nothing. And man, I just started pouring out tears. I was like, dude, I'm sick of it. Like, I'm in the same place I've always been. I was like, I just don't want to be here no more. I hadn't even been to a medium security prison yet. Like, most people are scared to go to medium custody prisons. I'd only been in level 4 in max. I was like, man, I want to go to a medium security prison. I'm sick of it. And I was like ugly crying. And she's like, ooh, Mahana, you know? And she's like, would you go to TC? And I was like, yeah, but they won't let me because of my points and everything else.
What's TC?
TC is Therapeutic Communities, and that's the Colorado Department of Corrections version of like inpatient treatment.
Okay.
And everybody understand when he's talking about points, you get points for whatever crime level, gang level, write-ups that you have. So there's certain levels of minimum security to medium to high to CSP to max, to where you point out and you end up in those situations. It's very, very, very hard to get down on points. It's easy to get up, but it's hard to get down.
I started up there,
Yeah.
so I never went down.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to go to a medium security prison. That was like my dream and my goal. Like in my head, I was like, oh, one day I'll go to a medium level yard. And so I skipped over the part. This is actually a huge part. During that time, one of my homeboys who had a life without and had exhausted all his appeals, we go to yard, we do pull-ups, go to chow, whatever, the routine. And he hit me up like, yo, bro, you should let me work on your legal work for you. You should let me see your stuff. See if I could help you. I was like, yeah, like you did for yourself. Like I would clown him. Clown him. And I was like, yeah, okay. You're going home, right? I'm like, yeah, I'll be there with you, bro.
Yeah.
But he would break me down for like 3 months straight. Every day he would just, yo, let me see that. So finally, just to get him to shut up, I threw him my legal box. So he filed a motion for me, and I can't remember exactly what it's called, but the gist of it is, and I had 3 other co-defendants, so like there's 4 of us here. There was 4 of us on my case. One was already a habitual offender in the state of Colorado, got probation. The other was on bond for a separate felony, got I think like maybe 10 or 15 or maybe 18 years in prison, something like that. And the other one got 5 years in prison. So what he filed was this thing, it was a motion, and the gist of it was like, we commit the same crime, we're on the same case, there has to be like Like, if you get probation, I can't have 60 years. Like, they have to be similar sentencing, and I cannot remember what it's called. But so the court sent Arapahoe County sent me a letter saying like, hey, like, yeah, you have legal standing based on this motion. We're gonna bring you back to court. So the day came and the day went. They never took me back to court. So now I'm in my cell pouting all. I was like, that's why I didn't want you to do this shit anyways. Why'd you do that? Sorry, my bad. But 2 weeks later, I get a mail from Arapahoe County Courts. And they're like, yeah, you know, you did have standing or whatever. They reduced my sentence by 30 years. So now I'm like, whoa. I was in for 8.5 years at that time. Got 30 years knocked off. I'm like, dude, I could walk this down. But I'm still stuck in my same spot. You know, like, my mindset didn't change. Nothing about me changed except they reduced my sentence. Now, fast forward back to where I was in there crying with that psychiatrist who asked me if I would go to TC. I was like, yes. She called this lady. Her name was Michelle Smith.
I know her.
Yeah, she passed away. But she used to, when I was a scrawny little kid in CSP, she would like escort me places. And so she remembered me. She got on the phone with her in front of me on speaker. She's like, hey, do you remember Mahana? She was like, yeah. And she's like, you're on speaker. She's like, oh. She's like, hey, how are you, Mr. Mahana? I'm like, good. She's like, Michelle was the head of TC for the entire state of Colorado at this point. Mm-hmm. That's how long I'd been in the system. Like, people who started were now advancing really high in their careers. And so she's like, Mahana wants to go to TC. And Michelle Smith was like, I do not think you'll be successful. She's like, but if you sign the paperwork, I will get you to TC. Then the next morning I jumped on the bus. I'm like, yeah. They're like, you're going to Sterling. I was like, what? So I go to Sterling, to the high side. As soon as I walk in, riot. Boom. I go to the hole. I'm in the hole. That psychiatrist who was working at DRDC came up. She's like, I don't care what's going on. You are going to TC. I swear, like 5 days later, I was at Fremont in A&O. And she got me into TC. So when I got on the yard, Michelle Smith actually came to Fremont Correctional Facility. She looked me in my eyes. She said, Mahana, I've known you since you were a young man. I do not think you deserve this opportunity. I don't think you're going to be successful. I had to go through it with so many people just to get you here. She's like, but I want to be the one person who said I gave you a chance. And she gave me a chance, man. And yeah, when I graduated TC, she came to my graduation. She gave me a hug. She was like, bro, I'm so proud of you. She was like, I really didn't believe you were going to be able to do it. And also while I was in TC, that's when one of my co-defendants did some other legal work.
We're good in there, huh?
Bro.
Man.
Well, no, their family paid for them.
Yeah, okay.
But I got 10 more years off, and so now I was already eligible for everything.
Man.
Got denied. And it was one of the therapists in TC called the halfway house I eventually ended up going to that had already denied me 3 times, and they're no longer open. It was Independence House Fillmore. She called the director.
I wish that place was still
So
open.
do I. That place changed my life.
Sounds like a few people changed your life.
Yeah, a few people did for no reason. Like, they didn't have any good reason. Like, a lot of those people gave me a reason to believe in people. And she called the director. She's like, how many people do you accept every day who don't make it? She's like, I'm telling you, I'm around this guy every day. Like, give him a chance. And if he doesn't make it, you were right. Who cares? And it worked. They accepted me, and I went to Independence House Fillmore. When I got there, now mind you guys, I didn't find the Lord in prison. I didn't change. I wasn't like, or any religion. I didn't find no religion, whatever religion. I was still me. I got there. This was a couple months before I turned 32. I had to get clothes from the donation closet. The shoes I got from out of there, the only ones they had that would fit me were 2 sizes too big. I didn't know how to turn on a smartphone. I didn't know what size clothes I wore because they only had large, small, medium. I didn't have no work skills, no education, nothing. There was a dude from my neighborhood in there. He ended up giving me 2 pairs of clothes and a pair of shoes that were like half a size too small. And that was how I got out of prison. I got my first job at a restaurant right up the street. I was washing dishes, making $11 an hour. I was supposed to bus. So half of my job wasn't just washing dishes. It was bussing the dishes. And the
best job you ever had, wasn't it?
No, man, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you get that chance, you know.
Oh,
free.
yeah, I'm so thankful. Like, that's why this next part, when the owner came to me and was like, hey, bro, we kind of don't want you bussing because you don't reflect good on our customer base. It, like, hurt my feelings.
Was that because of the tattoos, basically?
Yeah, because of the tattoos and stuff.
Okay.
It, like, hurt my feelings because but now I was 32. I was washing dishes, making $11 an hour, and that I wasn't even good enough to do that correctly. But I love that place. That place gave me an opportunity, and they didn't have to, you know. So shout out to them. So, but I remember thinking in my mind, like, dang, man, like I'm not gonna be successful out here. When I get out of the halfway house, I'm not gonna be able to afford to live nowhere.
Yeah, I remember at Jiffy Lube, they made me work under the cars. I couldn't be upstairs.
Yeah.
They didn't even let me. They didn't let me come upstairs when customers were there. I had to work under the cars.
Like I couldn't even leave the dish pit, even interact with the other employees. They're like, stay in the dish pit unless you're clocking in or clocking out. Just stay there.
Oh, man.
You know, that's when YouTube happened, bro. Like someone was like, "Yo, listen to music." I was like, "How?" They're like, "YouTube." I was like, "What's that?" And so an ad came up on YouTube for this like real estate investing company who does podcasts. And I started watching it, and I was like, the therapy in Independence House Fillmore, it really helped me because I'd be in the group sessions, and I'm like, dude, I'm scared. I'm scared when I get out that I'm gonna die or go right back to it because I don't know anything else, and I'm not gonna be washing dishes when I get out of here. And so that was probably the first time I was so honest, not just with myself, but in front of other people. You know, because as a man, or as the type of man I am, I'm a prideful individual. That's first. The second part, being a gang member, you're not supposed to show no weakness. So like admitting you're scared in front of other dudes, that's like, oh, you're a chump, you're a broad. But I didn't care at this point. I was in my 30s and I was just scared. I was so scared. So I found YouTube. I seen like these people. I was like, oh, I can open a halfway house. I want to open a halfway house. But I looked, I'm like, oh, I'm a felon. I cannot open a halfway house. But that's when I learned about sober living homes at that same time because some of the guys who were in the halfway house had been in sober living homes. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, I'm going to open a sober living home. So I went in the all-purpose room, jumped on the computer, created an LLC, and I was like, boom, I'm going to open a sober living home. Mind you, I was making $11 an hour. Yeah. Didn't have nothing to my name. Talked like a 14-year-old. And realized I don't have the means or the ability to open a sober living home either. Yeah. But I just kept that in my head every day. I finally was able to get a job at the rescue mission. And I was working there like 12, 14 hours every day. I would eat there because they have a cafeteria kitchen there.
Yeah. For the feds, I did like 275 hours of community service, and I waited till the last minute, so it became my job for free.
Yeah.
And I had to work there and work in the kitchen. Yeah. And, you know, I'm not really a traditional Christian, so I had to act like I was all Christian for that chaplain and answer his questions just to get that job. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah, we got a lot in common. Yeah, we got a lot in common on that. I remember this guy used to have football cleats on, and he was like, man, these are the best things to wear. And he was just trying to make his football cleats so cool because these are better than the regular shoes, man. They keep my posture right.
Yeah, the mission is the trip, bro. Yeah. But I would work there for like 14, 16 hours every single day. Not even just the days I was supposed to work. I would work until they'd be like, yo, you got to leave. I would eat there because the food was free. And that's where I really started learning some professional development because they have their trainings and stuff that you have to do. And it was cool because I got that professional development. But at the same time, everyone we worked with, the only people who I knew in there were clients, and they were messed up. So I was able to see what my reality could be easily, and it also hurt my heart. Because everyone I knew was either dead, in prison, not coming home, or living in the shelter, strung out, like living horrible lives. And so I just did that. I was like, I'm going to open a sober living home. I'm going to open a sober living home. And then my case manager from GRID, what used to be GRID, OCVS now, which Gang Reduction Initiative of Denver, he became the COO of a nonprofit here in Denver. And he used to walk through City Park with me when I was in the halfway house. And he was like, what do you want to do?
Joe's amazing, man.
Yeah, Pastor Joe Aragon. Yeah. He, I'll tell him, like, man, I want to work with juvenile gang members so they don't end up like me. And so he called me up one day. He's like, you still at the mission? I was like, yeah. He's like, I thought you wanted to work with juvenile gang members. I was like, I do. He's like, how's that going? I was like, yeah, I'm still at the mission. Probably be here till I die. He was like, well, hey, check this out. You know, I'm over here now. I'm their number 2, and we do that. Will you come work for me? And I was like, yes, sir. Yes, I will. So I started doing that and working overnight at the shelter. So I started working 2 full-time jobs.
What were both jobs?
One, I was a case manager doing youth violence prevention and secondary prevention with juvenile gang members. And my areas were East Denver and Aurora.
Okay.
And then my overnight was I was working at the shelter.
The rescue mission.
Yeah. So I was working 2 full-time jobs. Still didn't even make no money, but it was cool. Like, so I was doing that. And then I was telling my wife, because my wife comes from like nothing too. And I was like, bro, we need to find a way to, you know, figure this out so I can. But I talked about the sober living home so much. She was like to the point where she's like, bro, you're crazy. You need meds. Like, you need medication. Like, you're living in a delusional world. Like, it's not happening. And then I met a guy who's like, yo, you should open a hot dog cart. I used to make $1,000 a day. And I was like, bet. I came home from one of my jobs. I was like, yo, Bree, let's open a hot dog stand. She's like, no. I was like, Bree, let's open. She was like, no. I was like, babe. She's like, no. I was like, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, why do you want to do a hot dog stand? I was like, because this guy said we'll make $1,000 a day. And she's like, all right, fine. So we put our little change together. We bought a brand new hot dog cart. We built our menu, and we did all the legal stuff. We got the commissary, got all that stuff, our food and sales tax license, all that. And we started going like downtown by Coors Field, right across the street on like 20th and Blake on Friday and Saturday nights. And we wouldn't make $1,000 a day, but we do between $500 and $1,000 in sales per day in like 4 hours. And then we started doing like breweries, distillery, which goes against what we're talking about here. But we take our carts there and we just sell hot dogs and bratwurst and like this bottle of water. We were selling water for $3. It costs us 10 cents per bottle. But even then, when COVID hit, there was not a whole lot we could do. And the supply chain issues came, so we couldn't even get our supplies, and then everyone was inside anyways. And the only contractor who could give us our food supply wanted us to sign a minimum order for 6 months for $10,000 each month, which was way more than we could do. So man, I just went back to work now again overnight at the Salvation Army shelter, and full-time day job. And then Bree started working 2 full-time jobs, and we just started saving money. And I remember I was like, we're going to get a sober living home. And she was so like, there was even times in my head where I was like, dang, am I that person who like is full of it and I just live in like La La Land? Because you know how you see movies all the time where the person's like, we're going to be here one day. And then they're like 100 years old and they're never there. And he's like a whole disappointment to his wife and all that. I just remember feeling like, man, I don't want to disappoint my wife. She's like the only person who's ever rode with me. She's the only one. And so I was like, no. Well, we finally found a house. We put all of our money that we had into that house. And boom, the day we were supposed to close, the lender pulled the underwriting from us. So we lost that house. when we lost half of our money too, which was everything to us. I remember I was at my day job and Bree called me. Well, she was texting me and then calling me. So I called her and she's crying. She's like, we lost it. We're not going to get the house. And it's my fault because she didn't work for 3 months during the pandemic when the whole world was out of work for the most part. And they knew about it the whole time. So she felt like we got played and she felt like we weren't going to get my dream because of her. And I just remember telling her, I was like, don't even trip. Like, we're going to get it. Don't matter if it's today, tomorrow, or next year. It's happening. And so I remember telling this business development officer at the place I was working at, I was like, hey, I got to go. I told my boss, I was like, I'm going to leave. Like, I just had some bad news. This guy walked up to me and he's like, what happened? And I told him that night, this dude called me up and he's like, hey, don't sweat it, bro. He's like, I'll buy you that house. And I just started crying. Man, I never met a motherfucker who would give me a suit, bro. Let alone a house, a $500,000 house. Bro, 2 days later, we lost our money. But 2 days later, I shit you not, man, I'm up in this dude's house. We shook hands. And that's how Authentic started. Like, we didn't even sign a lease or nothing. He's like, hey, man, I heard your story. I'm in recovery. I heard you want to do sober living. And I was like, I do. And he's like, here. He's like, what do you think of this place? I was like, it's really nice. He's like, it's yours. Do it. When we shook hands, and I called Bree, and she's like, no, like that's not even real. And I was like, dang, man. I was like, yeah, whatever. So as Bree's telling me, like, don't get your hopes up, this homeboy texts me, and he's like, oh, hey, I forgot to give you the codes and stuff for the house. And he sent me over the codes and stuff, and I was like, he should send me the codes. He's like, do you want to come look at it? This dude had a Porsche sports car parked in the garage. When I met him, he pulled up in a Rolls Royce. I never seen stuff like that in real life, like on TV and all that. And then that's how it started. Like, it actually started. But I'd been working for years. I had already had my application, all this stuff, like the paperwork stuff. I had already had that. The website. I was paying for a website for years, and I didn't even have that. I had stock images of other people's houses.
I still have mine. So, you know, like you know, what's crazy about the story is I found recovery inside of Dumb Luck, inside of TC. You know, I made my first card, I remember, at Christopher Conway's desk. You know what I mean? Didn't even have a chance to do anything. I just made this card. Just a recovery coaching card, just to do transports. You know, nobody believed in me in sober living.
Yeah.
I started with $400 or $600 and like 4 guys, and everybody was crazy. I got blessed by a lady named Nikki. Man, helped out her son, and she got the first house for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She called me at 2 a.m, and I made a joke, and she was like, "No, you just got to do everything that you did for Nicky Boy. And you got to do the same thing, judicial and stuff like that." And I said, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't even have furniture. I put it out on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I had everything from judges to police to Bloods and Crips, GDs, everything, just dropping everything off. We probably, in 6 hours, we had more furniture for 3 houses than we even needed. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's just, you showed up, and that's what I love about your story. I'm going to let you continue going, but I just really, really, really happy that you came on this show, because, I mean, from what you've done to get where you're at, everybody that's listening, that's the true article of what this business is about. People think that sober living is about making money. No, it's just about getting a shot for people that open up these businesses to help people and to prove to themselves their worth. Because there's at times that we didn't have any worth. And nobody's going to give us a shot, and the people that gave us the shots would be the last people we could probably imagine in our whole life. And then all of a sudden we're here.
Yep. And that's it. And you and I were talking before we came on, and you were saying, like, share a lot of this stuff, because the unorthodox ways that you and I both got here, it's the only way some people will ever have a dream, bro. Like, I don't remember when I was in prison, I didn't have no dreams, man. I didn't think I was going to be anything. When I got out, I was convinced I was nothing, man. I couldn't even get a job at McDonald's, bro. Like, places people refuse to work at, I couldn't get those jobs, man. So thank you for having me, and I am so blessed. And I hope people who are listening, And I was struggling when I was in TC. I was getting high in TC, man. I'm not even gonna lie. I was getting high. I was bringing dope into TC, man. And I didn't learn my lesson. So that lady who gave me an opportunity, I spit in her face. Did I complete? Yeah, but I wasn't shooting it all the way straight. I was just manipulating. And
survival tactics, man. But let me ask you a question. So today, with that being said, what do you do for your recovery? What for a guy like you getting in on the streets, what does recovery look like for you?
so for me, like our program it's 12-step base, but I'm on all pathways because I done bumped my head so many times and been through so many things that I can't look you in the eyes and say you have to be a 12-stepper.
Exactly.
Because if you're not a 12-stepper and I'm refusing you an opportunity, you might die because I'm stuck in my own head. But so recovery for me nowadays, honestly, is chilling with the guys. I got 3 houses full of guys, and they look up to me, and it's weird. It's so weird.
I remember when I had my first building, I had 27 guys, and we lived at the same place. And, you know, it was funny. I was just dating my wife that I have now. She thought I was crazy. It was like, she remembers all of them. God rest in peace, Bam. You know, a few of them are not here, but we got about 23 of those guys that are still alive and still clean today. Got a few that passed away, you know, Greg, Bam, a couple others that just didn't make it, Jeff. But for the most part, you know, you remember homeboy that was at the church, that was Leo, a game over on his eyelids?
Yeah,
that's one of my guys too, from the original, from Tribe. You know what I mean? So with that, he used to be scared. Me and Bam's like 6'5", 300 pounds. And we'd have these 12-step meetings, and we'd use the popsicle sticks, the old school way. You'd have like spirituality and everything written on them. And he'd sit in there so mad, and he would chew on the popsicle stick, and me and Bam would tick back together. Like, you taking the popsicle stick? I'm not taking the popsicle stick. You know what I mean? He's chewed on the 5th one this week. He goes, you got more popsicle sticks? We got plenty of popsicle sticks. You know what I mean? It was just, we learned to have Christmas in those rooms together, and, you know, that's the great thing about sober living that people got to understand. You really find your family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would not trade a moment of being poor. You know, I remember me and Dan cutting a burrito in half, literally, because Dan took the payment and I had a second job.
Yeah.
So we could do this. You know what I mean? I would jump on planes. Everybody thinks I'm on planes. I'm actually on planes again. You know, I took a little spell of putting Tribe together and being home and being married and dialing that in, and now I'm back on planes again because that's how it started. You know what I mean? It's just going and doing interventions everywhere. But your story is just, it's next to a miracle. Hearing a lot of my story and yours, and trust me, you did a whole lot more harder time than I did. I'm not going to even lie about that. You know what I mean? I was on a medium way quicker, and I didn't have to go through that. I did some whole time, but I didn't do nothing like yours. But still at the same time, the treatment and the opportunity was the same. And what's beautiful right now is, like, if you look at us as Wage East partners, which if you're not one, I want to help you. No, we need to get you up in there to become one. You need to get with Corey. You need to get with Latino Coalition to become a Wage East partner as soon as possible. And if I can help with that, navigate to make that introduction happen, just like Hassan did for me and Leo did for me and a few other things, you know what I mean? But with that being said, there's 22 partners out there that are killing it. And we're locked arms. So, like, we had this sunset thing that was the other day when we were in, it was about a couple months ago when we were in front of the committee. So a sunrise, everybody, and a sunset of a grant means that a sunrise is when it starts, and obviously the sunset is when it closes. And you need to show data on why you need to make that grant sunrise again. 22 lived experience organizations sitting in a facility. Sitting in the Capitol, talking to everybody about recovery and why it's needed. We run the reentry in the state of Colorado. There's nobody better but places like us.
Yeah.
Just like your organization, my organization, Hassan's, Hazelbrook, Lifeline. You know what I mean? There's tons of out there. Denver Works, all these different beautiful companies that are out there. You know what I mean? Impact Center that has 1 million of us in there. You know, it's crazy. And I'm glad you're on the show. I would love to help you contribute to get this mission farther, figure out whatever type of funding sources, even partner with some grants to figure out how that works and how that goes. But yeah, man, this I knew you had a story. I just didn't know you had a story. And I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, you said earlier you were like, when you first got out, that you were the same guy pretty much, that you hadn't done much to change. But I can tell that whoever you were when you first got out, that's not who's sitting in front of me now. Mm-hmm. Like, you've definitely made a lot of changes, because I can see a tremendous man in front of me, And did you graduate high school?
So I was in the Colorado Division of Youth Corrections. They changed it to Division of Youth Services because it doesn't sound, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And it was youth corrections when I was there, so juvenile prison. They'd make us go to the classroom, and we'd color in a coloring book. So do I have a high school diploma? Absolutely. But I colored in a coloring book to get it.
So, but
in a state facility.
Because people will look down on somebody and go, oh, well, this is how far your education goes.
Yeah.
But you've gone much further than anybody would expect.
Yeah, that's what I tell my wife every day. I'm like, man, even when I'm stressed out, I'm like, on paper, I was never supposed to live out here. Like, period. I was supposed to die in prison. So whatever's going on, I can figure that out.
Yeah, I had this one saying I used to say all the time. I'm a GED battling PhDs.
Yeah.
And I have a mentor that says, no, you're a GED partnering with PhDs. So know the difference.
PhDs are learning from your life experience.
And we trade off, because it's a lived experience with the people with educations. We're both needed. Me and Nani were having a meeting prior to the show, and we're talking about the essence of true help and what we need. If we're not locking arms, everybody, and helping and stop hating, you got to help while everybody else is hesitating. Stop just thinking about what is the good thing and what is the proper way of doing it. Just get off your butt and help somebody. Even if you helped them 1,000,000 times, help them 1,000,001. And if you're tired and you can't do it, fold them over to somebody or her over to somebody that'll actually do it. And that's the true essence of this situation of what we need to do. And it's also, you got to understand is, well, everybody that's out there judging about businesses in your mind that you thought you were successful that you never did, you're listening to a man that didn't have anything, that actually put it together from a hot dog cart coming straight out of CSP. So how do you like them apples? So get up off of your butt and try to go ahead and figure out how your life is, because every miracle is possible at any moment.
Yes.
You put in work. Like, you've earned where you're at right now.
I didn't have a choice. The way I saw it in my mind is I had no choice. I was either going to be what I'd always been. And
you did have a choice. You had a choice to go back.
But I didn't. I got to the point where
you had a choice to do the same
to.
old crap. You had that choice.
Yeah.
You chose. You made a big choice.
Yeah.
You made a mission. You made a mission statement for your life.
I just want to say, since Tomas is here, I applied at Tribe and they did not hire me.
Did you? Did you? Well, we're gonna have to go talk to Ozzy about that one, because I'm kind of
the one who didn't hire me.
Man,
there will be a conversation.
This was a few years ago, though.
Yeah, man, Ozzy, you hear that, man?
But if you did,
little Navajo.
If they did, you wouldn't be where you are now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same things. I work with Leo. Me and Leo had our differences, but we're still good now. Hassan wouldn't even take my calls because I had the wrong person calling him.
Yeah.
And he was like, he just called me out one day and he was like, you know how Hassan talks?
Yeah.
He goes, yo, Tomas. I go, what's up? Who's this? He goes, like, this is Hassan Latif. Can you be to my office? I want to talk to you. I want to partner with you. Man, I don't even think I had gas in the car, and I didn't even stop at the gas station. I was at that dude's place so quick. You know what I mean?
First time
and I got
met
over
Hassan,
there,
bro.
Yeah,
I shook his hand because he was a legend in the joint.
Yeah,
people were like, he was the one who I always heard for years. People were like, man, this dude's doing stuff. Anything's possible, and that's why I tell people all the time, bro. If you want to be an astronaut, call Hassan.
Exactly.
He will help you be whatever. He will find the way to get you wherever you want to be. And so, I met him. I shook his hand, and man, I love Hassan, bro. He's a good man.
Yeah, it's a trip. I got the chance to go out to San Francisco with him, and I remember one pinnacle thing that he said to me. He was like, Tomas, I'm not the biggest guy out there. I'm not the smartest guy. He goes, but I'm like Heinz 57 ketchup sauce. Or Heinz 57 sauce. I play a mean game of catch up. I learn. He goes, I learn quick, and I learn on my toes, and I take every responsibility and everything, and I use spirituality and my family and in the community to get the things that we need to be done. And he told me another pinnacle thing, and I can't wait until we get him on this show. He did say that changed my life. He says, Tomas, what do? Do you compete with others, or do you compete with yourself? And I said, you know what? I've been guilty of both. He goes, that's a good, fair enough answer. He goes, but which one was the best for you? I said, when I competed with others, I became a smaller shell of myself, and I started getting a lot of negativity in my life. But when I competed with myself, I pushed myself to be so much better. And, and that's the essence of what you've been talking about, is you competed with yourself. You didn't let it go. I mean, you showed that, your wife's been on this show, that love prevails. You know what I mean? That you can be in recovery, that support system that you have. Like a lot of stuff with my wife, I'm not even worthy to even be her husband at some of the stuff that I've done in the past. And you know what? I don't even know how to be a husband right now, and I'm trying to put it together because, I've been in the same situations as you, and it's like, how do you find love when you're, like my own version of my framed bloody shirt being jumped in. Nani's is a little bit different. We'll talk about that right now. We'll just go ahead and move on from that one. But anyway, with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Slim, but I just love you, man. I appreciate it.
We want to thank our guest, Kelly Mahana from Authentic Recovery Homes, for coming in today. How can people learn more about Authentic Recovery Homes?
Yeah, you could go to our website, www.authenticrecoveryhomes.com. You could email me, kelly@authenticrecoveryhomes.com. The numbers are all on there. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Mahai, Kelly said people looked at him and they wouldn't give him a job. And it's another reminder, don't judge a book by its cover. All right.
And Ozzy.
Yeah, Ozzy.
All right. Don't look at somebody by their tattoos and decide you've already decided what kind of person they are. Kelly Mahana, thank you very much for coming in today.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
Mahai, this is Sharing Our Stories. We share stories of addiction and recovery. You can find this program on flowdenver.com, also on jammin1015.com. It is brought to you by Tribe Recovery Homes here in the 5280 podcast studio, brought to you by Merge Media Academy. Join us again next week, and thank you very much for being a part of Sharing Our Stories.